Scott, James played a clip to open the show from the end of the game when Saban went out to meet Orgeron for the handshake, and and Eli said, and Nick Saban standing right on the eye of the tiger, and there's a tear in that eye tonight. I thought that was a great line.
Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, Gary, there's something special about going to Baton Rouge and being in that stadium. And I think I texted you the other night. I've been there, I don't know, I think that was the 13th trip in my life there. I've never seen Alabama lose in that stadium. So that's a pretty impressive streak when you think about it over about 30 years. But, yeah, I tell you what, man, walking to the stadium on Saturday, and that's what I love about going to away games, Gary. You get a real sense of how the crowd is feeling and if they're confident or not, usually. And I thought it was a very nervous LSU crowd, a great crowd, but not one that you would think normally experienced down there. I think that they, deep in their hearts, knew it was going to be an uphill battle. And it's a great atmosphere, but it was Alabama really took them out of their rhythm down there early on, and they really didn't have a whole lot to cheer about really from the time LSU ran on the field to the end of the ball game. So getting that crowd under control down there was number one on the list going into the game. They did it, and Bama missed on some opportunities. That's a very good LSU defense. Very physical, really good cornerbacks, and watching them play, you can understand why it's been difficult to move the ball on them. But an impressive win. I saw something this morning that kind of put it in perspective. LSU held Alabama, 4 touchdowns under its average, basically, and still lost by 4 touchdowns. That kind of puts it in perspective right there.
Yeah, it does. And, I want to get into how quickly the narrative changed on LSU even before the game was over, and we'll do that in just a little bit. But, I listened to 2 weeks of hype. Scott, even though we're sportscasters and analysts and talk show hosts and, all the things that we do, I think sometimes you can be impacted, too, by what you hear, and we'll get into that with the officials, too. But but I had picked it 38-20, which is a fairly lopsided score. I thought Alabama would cover the point spread, which they did. And when you look at how close those games had been in Baton Rouge, that 38-20 was not bad until Saturday afternoon, actually, after my Crimson Tide kickoff show. And I just sat down with the notes, and I started looking at LSU's offense, and I said to myself, they're not scoring 20 points. They may not score 10 points. And I give Joe Burrow a lot of credit. He's done a nice job for them. They're a good team. And he's done a really good job, and he has managed games against opponents where all they had to do was stay in the game to find a way to win. But in this game, he was going to need to be better. He, as I said, you either have to have a great quarterback or great quarterback play. Your quarterback has to play great to beat Alabama. He wasn't capable. He's not a great quarterback, and he wasn't capable of doing enough. And I was surprised, once again, by their stubbornness to just feel like that they could just line up and go toe-to-toe with Alabama. They couldn't. They had no chance offensively. It wouldn't have mattered. Once Alabama probably got it to 9-0, that game was over. The domination on the line of scrimmage. But your thoughts on LSU's offense? Insminger, I thought, had done a nice job, but once again, we saw no creativity. Yeah, granted, when your quarterback's getting, drilled, it's hard to do too much on offense, but they acted like, again, they thought they could just line up and play man-to-man, go toe-to-toe with Alabama, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah, well, it was. I had a 42-17. I thought Bama would be prolific in the game and score in the 40s. And again, I thought the margin of victory would be around 25 points. I thought it would be a dominant performance by Alabama. You could sense that around the hotel on Friday and Saturday morning that they were really focused and ready to go. But listen, once the game started, and I was sitting with your buddy Chuck Norwood, Gary, at the ball game. It was great that Chuck was there. And
how did you hook up with him?
He just happened to be sitting right in front of me Saturday night. And he came in, sat down, and it was great. So had Chuck and Danny Sheridan's brother there with him, and it was fun sitting there going back and forth talking to those guys during the ball game. Those are real football guys, and we said when it was 9-0, I told Chuck, I said, I don't think LSU's going to score tonight. He goes, I don't think they are either. And it was pretty evident just how dominant Alabama's defense was too. And Gary, here was the other thing. when you're at a game and you get to see different things take place and all that, Alabama's team speed to me Saturday night was very, very evident on the defensive side of the ball. When you see really good athletes and LSU's got them, Alabama just overwhelmed them with team speed, side-to-side play. Alabama's linebacker play really showed up Saturday night. And you could tell this was the same old LSU offense that we've seen the last 5 years, minus Leonard Fournette and Darius Geis. And when you take those guys out of the lineup, it was almost impossible for them to score. And Gary, they took one shot down the field, and that was it. And Patrick Surtain was able to bat that ball away. And it looked like LSU played to not make any mistakes. They didn't want to turn the ball over, get a pick six, do something crazy to get themselves in trouble. They just didn't even take any shots down the field at all. I mean, they couldn't protect the passer for one, but they just did not take any shots down the field and stretch Alabama's defense at all. That surprised me a little bit, but then again, it gets back to LSU's personnel. They didn't have anybody at wide receiver that scares you. They didn't have any tailbacks that scare you, and the main player on the field for them, Joe Burrow, he didn't scare you either. So it was a bad matchup, even though Ed Orgeron said we match up pretty well with Alabama. It's a bad matchup for them offensively against Alabama's defense.
Yeah, here's the thing. Alabama's a bad matchup for everybody, and that's just the reality. And that's kind of been my theme today is don't discredit LSU for losing to a superior team. I get tired of it, Scott, because LSU deserved to be third in the playoff rankings. They deserved everything they had gotten. They had earned it. They did have, in my opinion, the best win in college football. I think their win over Georgia was a better win than Michigan's over Notre Dame, or Notre Dame's over Michigan, I should say. They're a good team. But Alabama makes all these teams look like this. This is the thing. In the SEC, it is a good league. But every week, you're just trying to find a way to win the game. And then there's Alabama. What they do to teams is not representative of what it's like to beat these teams week in, week out. And I said this earlier, Scott, I'm curious if you agree. If any other team in the country, I'm not talking about just in the league, but in the country, whether it be Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, you name it, had gone in there and done what Alabama did Saturday night to LSU, we would be shocked. The only reason we're not shocked is that it's Alabama. So they don't, even though they're number one and all the great things, they don't get the credit for doing what they did Saturday night because we've come to expect it. But if that's any other team in the country, don't you agree? I
totally agree.
People would be falling over themselves. I can't believe Clemson went in there and beat LSU 29-0.
Yeah, well, one thing's for sure, Georgia, who's a top 4 team in the country right now, they went in there and LSU ran for dang near 300 yards on them. And that wasn't a fluke. LSU lined up and said, we're going to run the ball straight at you, and then cover Georgia's receivers as well. I mean, Georgia was rendered totally inadequate in that ball game. The crowd got to them. Jake Fromm got frustrated. They couldn't run the football after they got away from it. And then LSU just lined up and just ran big boy football and ran at Georgia whenever they wanted to. And they played great defense. Got 3 turnovers in the ball game. Picked Jake Fromm 3 times, cashed it in. And that was the game to me that legitimized LSU and keeps them legitimate now. That's it. And LSU's going to get a lot of credit because, hey, they got beat by Alabama. They shouldn't drop too far. But LSU's a good football team, man. I thought they were well coached, but as Ed Orgeron said, we were outmanned. But I'm not sure anybody else in the country could have gone in that environment Saturday night. That place is lit. It's a different place to play, Gary. It's a great place to play, and for competitors, that's the kind of games you love playing in. But I will say this, too. For Alabama, the toughest place for Alabama to go is not Baton Rouge. It's Auburn. And we've both been, you and I have both been in both places multiple times in our life. And there's just something different about Alabama having to go to Jordan-Hare. That's been the toughest environment for an Alabama team to win. And I think through the years, Alabama has learned how to play in Baton Rouge, and they approach it differently than any other team that goes in there. And that's why they've had so much success. Plus, you're Alabama going into Baton Rouge, so it's different. But winning 29-0, I think, and you beat a team where you're a 14-point favorite and you beat them 29-0, to shut them out for the second time in a row down there, that was about as impressive as it gets, and it becomes a major signature win. Gary, is the worst loss for a top 4 team at home since they've been doing the poll era. 29-point loss at home as a number 3 team in the country. That hadn't happened before since the poll era started. Things like that don't happen in college football.
No, it doesn't. It's just unbelievable what's happening right now. But as Nick Saban has said, Scott, you're remembered by what you do in November. This team, to take its place in history, just like the team 2 years ago, will have to finish anything short of, in my opinion, a 15-0 national championship. And I know this is silly, but this is where Alabama's raised the bar. You could even win a national championship a little bit like last year. Even though Alabama won the national championship, there were still some people disappointed because they lost to Auburn. I think this is the year Alabama wants to take the next step and become that first 15-0 team. Scott Moore back with us on the Bud Light Hotline here on the Gary Harris Show, discussing what we saw Saturday night. And that run by Tua, I think, was the touchdown that pretty much salted it away in terms of just really taking LSU's will away. I think it was pretty much over when Alabama got to 6-0. All right, let's talk about one negative, okay? Because everything else is positive. I mean, coaching,
I know what's coming.
Big check mark. Defense, big check mark. Offense, big check mark. Line of scrimmage, everything was Alabama's advantage. And it may not matter, Scott. It may not matter. And I think Bernier has stepped in and solidified the punt game, the kick return game, the kick coverage game. It wasn't its best, but it's all solid. But place kicking, you just can't stop worrying. I mean, Bulovas had been hitting the ball well. But then he had a poor night kicking off. He hooked one right out of bounds. He had a couple of others that I don't think he placed them where he was supposed to. And then the extra points, what a fiasco. The first one, of course, Tua is the normal holder. They don't want him back there holding, and I get it. I don't think he should be holding under any circumstances, but certainly with a bad knee. But Mac Jones has had all 2 weeks to get ready to hold. He's a quarterback. Catch the snap and get it down, okay? I mean, that's, it's just, It's 101 kicking. You catch the snap and get it down for the place kicker. He doesn't do it. It gets kicked into the ground. And then later, I don't know what Bulovas was doing on that other one that got blocked. But this is, I just said watching the game, just start going for 2 every time. I mean, if you make 50% of your 2-point conversions, it's just as good as kicking an extra point every time. And if you make more than 50%, it's better. And I'm being a little bit facetious, but and then Coach Saban said afterwards, we just got to, we got confidence. We just got to, do better. But it's unbelievable that you can be such an incredible football team in every area and just can't seem to get the place kicking thing right.
Yeah. LSU's field goal kicker had virtually missed one all night long, and he missed one as well the other night. But that was poetic justice. The fact that they would even try a field goal down 22-0. But go ahead. Yeah, exactly. That's a whole nother show, isn't it? But, I think the funny thing is it's like the football guys are saying, okay, this is a great football team, but here's the area that you have to work on. And, it really is mind-boggling because I love to watch the kickers in pregame, Gary, because that gives you, again, a lot of sense of, okay, how far are they good for if you need a long field goal, or how consistent are they in the pregame and all that kind of stuff. And it was a fiasco in the pregame, to be honest with you. Misses right to the left, misses right to the left. I mean, no consistency at all in the pregame. And you would think also, too, on kickoffs, because at Alabama, you do kick off a lot, more than any other team in the country, quite frankly. And that's been the big problem, is ball's not going out of the end zone. People aren't fair catching the ball in Alabama. They're running it back, and LSU got a big return that they could have got them back in the ball game. So the kick out of bounds was bad as well. I mean, you hook one out. I don't know how you do that. And so I think right now it's a confidence problem with Bulovas. The trajectory for him last year was difficult because he had to learn how to kick off the ground and get rid of the tee, which is a big adjustment for a lot of high school kickers. And he just hadn't made that adjustment. He still kicks it low, and because he kicks it low, he didn't get a lot of distance. So that's the problem, is that they're just going to have to get by right now, because I don't know if you can fix a trajectory problem, and that's an issue moving forward. So And there's going to be a time this year. I know people may not think it's going to happen, but there's going to be a time this year where you're going to need a field goal and need a big field goal. And even on that first drive, Gary, if Alabama had gone down and gotten points on that first drive, I think the LSU fans that kept them in the ball game for a bit.
It did,
but I would have had no confidence in a field goal right there.
Well, that's why they brought the punter out. I mean, they weren't really out of field; they were fringe range. But you're right. The theory is, well, this is around a 49, 50 yarder. We're better off just punting the ball down because we could get it blocked.
Yep.
We can miss it and give them better field position. It factors in. There's no doubt about it. And anyway, they'll keep working at it. It's just one of those things. I just can't. It's just amazing.
It's been going on.
And then you look at the kid from Fort Payne that's down at Florida, and he's not missing any kicks, and he wanted to come here because basically they can get their pick of just about any kicker that they want every year. And they got the Riker kid coming in from Hoover. Maybe next year he's the guy, but they've passed on some others, and the ones they've taken just quite frankly haven't been as good as the ones they passed on. They took Adam Griffith, who was number one kicker in the country, and passed on Daniel Carlson, and Griffith was good, but he wasn't Carlson good.
No, they don't do a bad job of. They usually don't miss on people when they do their own scouting. They Bama verify. They usually are pretty good on their evaluations of players. But this has been the one thing that has plagued them now for a while. So,
people at home are sitting there, so why are they talking about that? Because we got to find a negative. Nick Saban gets mad if you only talk about the positives, so we had to do that. Hey, let's get into the officiating and the impact that the wine fest that LSU had for 2 weeks had on the game. All right, a couple things. I'm going to preface my question to you with these comments. The officials don't cheat, and I'm sick of people even insinuating that they do. Shut up, okay? They don't cheat. There's not a single official that goes out there and says, I'm going to try to determine this game because I'm a cheater. I'm going to cheat. It doesn't happen, all right? Yeah. What does happen is, James is laughing. Officials can be, they're humans, and they can be impacted. And LSU made a conscious decision. And we'll get into this James Carville on ESPN crap in a minute. But LSU made a conscious decision to insinuate, and more than insinuate, flat out accuse the SEC of cheating with officials in the Alabama game. So I think what happens is officials know the situation, they know where they're at, and I just think they say to themselves, we're going to be extra cautious tonight because of what's been said and what's gone around here to make sure that we don't give any perception that Alabama gets favoritism. We saw it on the targeting call. That was targeting, okay? He hit the helmet to helmet. I don't care that the kid stayed in the game. In fact, I'm glad he did because I didn't want to have to hear it. And here's the advantage Alabama has. If the game is loosely officiated, and what I mean by that is not a lot of stuff is called, it benefits Alabama. Alabama's the better team. But LSU consistently held on the line of scrimmage. They let it go. They couldn't block them. I just thought they let the defensive backs for LSU get extremely physical downfield with receivers, knocked them off their routes, which threw off the timing, which cost for some incompletions. I don't have a problem with that. But I do think the officiating was impacted by all the BS we had to listen to for 2 weeks. You agree with that?
Absolutely. And you're right. It started with James Carville on College Game Day Saturday morning. First of all, allowing that guy on game day.
Yeah, and then issued an apology like you didn't know what he was going to say. You can't have it both ways. They put him in there to bait the audience, then they come back with this little hollow apology. Crock of crap.
And Herbstreit was watching it kind of going, I was watching Herbstreit's reaction.
He was thinking, what are we doing, wasn't he? What are we doing with this guy up here?
He was like, what is this guy doing up here? And you could tell he was embarrassed by it. And I know Kirk didn't like that at all because that takes away from the whole objectivity of what game day is supposed to be. And, Carville had no business being on game day. He didn't need to be heard, period. It was an absolute clown show. And I think his comments, quite frankly, I think that's one of the reasons the game was called the way it was, because LSU had made such a big deal about the SEC office, about Sankey. And look, whether you like Greg Sankey or not, you don't have the right to go on a college game day situation and openly criticize the conference, the commissioner, and say, hey, these things might be in place to favor Alabama. That was an absolute crock of unprofessionalism right there. And another reason there's so many issues with ESPN that need to be addressed. And again, that's another show. But I thought there was no question that was targeting on Delpit, no doubt about it. And that place would have come unglued had he been kicked out of the ball game. I'm with you, Gary. I'm glad he didn't get kicked out. And that's another thing too. I don't think anybody should get kicked out of a game, disqualified for a game for targeting. I just don't think you should. I think it should be a 15-yard penalty, and maybe you miss the series. But they've got to address that. Making a play. And football's an aggressive game. You're going to have those things happen. But when you go after somebody, that's a different story. So I thought Delpit went after Tua the first time. I thought that was a bad deal. They were after Tua's knees, no question in my mind. They were in that 5-yard penalty. That's what happened. That was obviously a hit on Ruggs. It wasn't called. And the holding calls. Listen, they held Quinton Williams all night, and he still dominated inside. I mean, it was unbelievable.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what great football teams do. They play through it, and in the long run, if games are loosely officiated, and what I mean by that, as you know, Scott, is what I say, loosely officiated, they let a lot of stuff go. I think that always benefits the better team. I think that always benefits Alabama. They'll play through it better. If a game's tightly officiated, where they're calling every little thing, I think that benefits the poorer team. So I don't think Alabama. And then one thing about it, you'll never hear Nick Saban complain about officiating. If he's got anything to do, then he'll send it to the league office. We've seen egregious calls that have gone against Alabama, and Nick Saban has not publicly commented on them. It's just there's a professional way to do things. And LSU, even though they'll say it didn't come strictly from them, it came from people around the program. It was clear they encouraged it. Their athletic director, Olivas, had issues with the SEC office over and over, but Alabama took care of business. Hey, let's get to our final break. Time just flies when you're having fun. So we got one more break to get to. We'll come back, and we're going to really have to get through this next segment because I want to touch on a couple of other games as well. Scott Moore with us from ITalk SEC Radio in Destin, Florida. We're back right after this timeout. Scott Moore's final segment. Let's touch on Alabama and Mississippi State. Alabama opened as a 25.5-point favorite, Scott. We know why. They're at home. One thing I'll say for this Mississippi State team, I think their defense is as good as anybody's in the league. Alabama, LSU, Georgia, you name a defense. I think Mississippi State's as good as anybody on that side of the ball.
They are. They're very, very good on the defensive line, Gary. They've been great against the rush, great total defense. And they've got 2 first-round picks with Montez Sweat, obviously, and we know about the other.
Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons has been dominant all year. He and Quinton Williams are probably right now the best 2 defensive linemen in the SEC. They've been very consistent this year, and he's one of them. And so they're physical. The problem that they've got offensively, Gary, is that Nick Fitzgerald played pretty well against Texas A&M, but consistently all year he's had trouble hitting open receivers, and they're pretty one-dimensional when you get down to it. I just don't think that with Alabama's linebackers healthy, they weren't healthy last year, obviously, and it had different personnel in the game last year, and State took advantage of it. This is a healthy Alabama defense now. And they're going to be very, very difficult to run on. And I just don't think Mississippi State can beat Alabama running quarterback. He's going to have major big plays out of the passing game, and they're going to have to score a lot of points, obviously, because I think Alabama is going to score a lot of points on them. So that said, Nick Fitzgerald is going to have to get really accurate in a hurry this week, or State's going to be in trouble.
Let's get to the Bud Light Hotline real quick and welcome in Super Joe. What up, partner? What you got, Super Joe?
I'll tell you what, man, it's 29-0. I'll tell you what, they said Desert Island is so hard for everybody's opponents to play, and obviously it was hard for LSU to play. you have to go ahead and make it. Sometimes you got to go ahead and raise a team at their own dinner table, and we did that. I said, this past Tuesday before the bye week, I said it'd be fun if LSU don't get a point on the board, and then I tell you what. I said, this really convinces me that we can win out. This convinces me.
Yeah, Joe, Super Joe, great take as always, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah, Scott, Alabama might start calling it Happy Valley.
It is Happy Valley. I'll tell you what, there's everything to be happy about. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna say this though, when against Mississippi State, shoot, I tell you, I got to go to that game now, so I'm going. I got my 2 tickets ready for the Iron Bowl, and I'm going to the Iron Bowl next year. But
all right, you're breaking up, partner. We're going to let you go. You're breaking up. Super Joe always calls in with a serious take, Scott. He doesn't fool around with it. But yeah, Alabama, it's not Death Valley for the Tide, and he made a good point. It might be Death Valley for LSU. I'm with you on Mississippi State. I think defensively they can line up. They don't have the offense. I mean, it's just like LSU. They just don't. I mean, they're going to struggle. They got 3 points against LSU. I mean, it'll be all they can do. It'll be all they can do to score any points in the game. I do think their defense, like LSU's, you might see a game where Alabama doesn't light it up for 50. They got, that's the thing. Alabama went for 500 plus yards, but they were held to 29 points, and it should have been 31 if you could kick an extra point. But still, I mean, that's not what we're accustomed to. But when you play these kind of defenses, you're not going to just go up and down the field the way they have in some other games, and they'll probably have to struggle some offensively against Mississippi State.
They would, and I think also the other night I think that Alabama wanted to see about itself. We wanted to see, can you run the football when you have to? And listen, they passed that with flying colors.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
They lined up and they ran the ball whenever they wanted to, wherever they wanted to. They were physical, and it reminded me a lot of the Georgia game last year when Najee got loose and just let it roll, and Damian Harris against Clemson. I mean, it just they looked so good running the ball. There was lanes to run in. Alabama's offensive line, they were dominant up front. And that's what you want to see in November, Gary, the ability to line up against a really good defensive football team that's got NFL talent and just punch them in the nose and just say, look, we're going to run it at you and go from there. I do think that Alabama, once they got the lead and once Tua made the run, it's 29-0. I think Alabama could have probably put a couple of more points on the board if they wanted to let Tua sit back there and throw in the fourth quarter. Wasn't any need to do it. 29-point lead, run the ball. You did it. You pounded at them. And I think Alabama found out what it needed to find out about itself Saturday. Yes, sir.
We're getting short on time, and Tom's got a question for you on the Bud Light Hotline. So let's go ahead and get to Tom. Tom, welcome into the program.
Good morning. Good show. Good discussion. My question is on the game coming up next week. I don't see Mississippi State having very good pass defense. I want to get y'all's take on that. My take is that Tua will light that secondary up, and I'm going to hang up and listen to the answer.
I think they got some deficiencies back there. The thing, Tom, is their pass rush is unbelievable. Montez Sweat coming off that edge, he's a load for anybody. So I think if Tua gets time, I'm with you. It'll be a challenge to keep that front off him, I think, though, Scott. They're really, as you said, they're really good up front. They're really good at linebacker, too.
They are. And listen, the thing about them this year, they haven't really seen a prolific passing attack. And A&M's passing attack has been okay. I mean, Kellen Mond's had a couple of good ball games, but they haven't seen a prolific passer. I mean, we got to be honest about that. They did a good job against Jared Stidham, but when you look at their pass defense right now in the SEC, Mississippi State, they're number one in the SEC. Only give up 167 yards, but my point is good. They hadn't seen anybody like 2 all year. Of course, nobody else has either. So while they're number one in the conference in pass defense, they hadn't seen anybody that's been capable of lighting them up. So the defensively maybe a little bit skewed in the pass game. They haven't, the Florida offense is challenged. The Auburn offense has been challenged. And everybody else that they've played against so far this year, LSU's offense, pass-wise, was challenged. And again, I'm not really impressed with who they got in the back end. Okay, I think they're going to have a hard time covering Alabama's receivers. But you're right about Josh Sweat. Sweat might be, since Terrell Lewis is injured right now, might be the best pass rusher in the league now because he's so quick off the edge, and they use him inside, and they do a lot of stunts and things of that nature. So that's the question for me is, can they hold up and cover Alabama's receivers? LSU secondary, in my opinion, is more talented, faster, bigger, got more length back there. And Mississippi State could get lit up on Saturday, and quite frankly, I expect that to happen.
All right, great call, Tom. Yeah, Scott says they have some deficiencies in the back end. If Tua gets time to throw, of course, he'll light up most people if he gets time. All right, we're just about out of time, Scott. Quick thought on and you and I both hold Jimbo Fisher in high regard. I think he's going to get it done there at A&M, but he let one get away from him, and I can't put that anywhere else. I can't put it on Kellen Mond because Kellen Mond should not be throwing 15-yard outs, even though he threw it right to Inga Jabingi, or however he says his name. You got 6 minutes to go in the game. They've done nothing offensively, talking about Auburn. You don't turn the ball over, you're going to win the game. I put that L clearly on Jimbo Fisher. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I've got some Florida State people, but Jimbo has been good for one or two of those a year for about the last 4 or 5 years. And so, matter of fact, when my co-host on my show said, "Hey, a Jimbo special is coming soon," and I actually picked Auburn to win Saturday. I thought they'd beat Texas A&M.
I didn't.
I had a 24-17. I thought they'd win at home. A&M really struggled last week against Mississippi State, and that continued this Saturday.
Well, really, that's the thing, Scott. Really, they didn't struggle. They dominated the game for 3.5 quarters. That's what makes it so hard if you're an A&M fan. Auburn got a touchdown off a turnover early. I mean, they had 180 yards of offense with 6 minutes to go in the game. A&M had dominated the game, Scott. That's what I'm saying. And you got a 10-point lead. Their offense had done nothing. Nothing. Yeah,
I was talking about Mississippi State last week.
Oh, okay.
State. They really had a hard time in that ball game, and I thought they would have a hard time Saturday too. But listen, they were in control of the game, had the game won. That was a bad call. Should not have made that throw. And one turnover turned the entire game around.
Changed the game. Hey, quick thought, because Georgia did what we thought they would do. They took care of business of Kentucky. Yeah. We got 30 seconds. You like Georgia to roll Auburn, or you think Auburn can go in there and keep it competitive?
No, I think Georgia the running game's coming along now, Gary. They're running it, they're throwing it better, and their defense is just too talented. Auburn's going to have a hard time, and Auburn may get blown out Saturday by Georgia. Georgia's starting to play like we thought, but this is still not the Georgia team that was of 2018. They got a long way to go to get to that level.
This just goes by too fast. You can follow Scott on Twitter at ITalk SEC. Catch him on ITalk SEC Radio, part of the Back Road Sports Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.